how do we get noticed? How do we get you, your product, your services, your organization, your brand, your cause, whatever it is that you're marketing? How do we get you noticed in a very, very noisy world?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Persuasion Play Podcast. My name is Jeffrey at goldmine.marketing, where I write about, blog about, tweet about, podcast about persuasion, motivation, and influence, and how you can influence your brain and the brains around you towards better outcomes. Today, I have a very special guest. I'm excited to welcome David Newman, CSP. David is a certified speaking professional, a popular keynote speaker, and the author of multiple books such as Do It Selling, Do It Speaking, and Do It Marketing. He works with founders, mid-market CEOs, and professional service firms who want to play bigger, grow faster, and become a category of one. The category of one is especially important because David has a new book coming out called Market Eminence, 22 Strategies to Build a Bold Personal Brand, Become a Business Celebrity, and Drive Unstoppable Growth. David is also the host of globally ranked top podcast #1 in marketing podcasts. It's called The Selling Show. David has over 500 episodes. This is episode 18 of the Persuasion Play Podcast. I want to welcome David Newman. David, thank you so much.
Hey, Jeffrey, it's great to be here. And don't worry about episode 18. It's much more about quality than about quantity.
All right. I like that. Yes. All right. Where are you calling in from? Your office?
I am in Philadelphia. I'm outside Philadelphia in the suburbs, actually, but we call it Philadelphia.
I hear
you know, Eagles, cheesesteaks, Flyers, the whole thing.
Right on, right on. Yeah, well, so Market Eminence is coming out. I got the Kindle. Is that generally available now, or is that?
It is, absolutely. If folks pop over to marketeminence.com, the Kindle is available. That we launched that one first, just to get that into as many people's hands as possible, get some early reviews, build up some early excitement, and then the paperback and audiobook are coming later on.
Yeah, I have the Kindle version myself. It's really interesting. The first half is broken into how to put yourself in the mindset for eminence, which means fame, if I recall, and then the second half are the actual strategies. So if you could tell me, and our listening audience, of course, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, so the problem that the book is trying to solve, problem that I am trying to solve through this book, is in 2025, 2026, how do we get noticed? How do we get you, your product, your services, your organization, your brand, your cause, whatever it is that you're marketing? How do we get you noticed in a very, very noisy world that is filled with AI-driven nonsense and content that is look-alike, same-o, lame-o content churned out by the terabyte? And my answer to that question is, how do we get noticed? How do we rise above the crowd? Is this concept of market eminence that I break into 3 pieces. So, Jeffrey, the first part is visibility. And visibility, obviously, no one buys products or services or companies or expertise. No one buys those things sight unseen. So job number 1 is to get seen, but not to get seen by everybody, to get seen by the right people in the right places. The second part of this is respect. My version of respect, and it's an old copywriting 101 concept, but the muggles don't know about it, is we need to understand our prospects' pains, problems, headaches, heartaches, challenges, gaps, goals, dreams, wishes, aspirations. We need to understand them so well that they feel that we have bugged their offices, we have put video cameras in their homes and conference rooms, and we know exactly what they're going through. And that is a level of respect that I categorize as you get me. You get me. I went to your website. Man, Jeffrey, I felt like you were talking to me. I read your latest email. Boy, oh boy, do I ever have that problem. We were just talking about that at a board meeting. You must know exactly what I'm going through. So that's the level of professional respect. And then the third component is brand preference. And brand preference is kind of the fun one. this is a combination of positioning and differentiation where, if done correctly, you make it dangerous, risky, and dumb to buy from anyone else. So you are not necessarily the best choice because you're never going to win that game. Best according to who, best for what needs, best for what type of prospect or client. Forget about that. It's not about best. Best is purely subjective. And best also lives up here, right? Best is an intellectual concept. Different, however, different speaks to here. Different speaks to emotion. Different speaks to the heart. Different speaks to the soul. People can sense different way quicker than they can sense better. And again, better, we're never going to win that game because guess what? There's always somebody better. There's always somebody better. There's always somebody cheaper. So you are not going to win either one of those games. We have to focus on different. And this concept of making it so that folks feel that it is risky, dangerous, and dumb to work with anyone else, if you do that, you have won the game and everything with marketing and selling becomes easier.
Nice. I like that a lot. Yeah, it's a big, like you mentioned, terabytes of AI. And that all sounds, to me, I think, the same. And maybe I have the wool pulled over my eyes and what I think is different is from AI. But yeah, when you sound like everybody else, you look like everybody else, you can't stand out, right?
So it's funny that you mentioned this about AI. And by the way, I love AI. People hear me rant about this, and clients and audiences hear me talk about this, and they go, "Oh, he's anti-AI. He hates AI. He doesn't believe in AI." I love AI. I use AI almost daily. But so AI has one kind of intelligence. It has computational intelligence. It is a worldwide aggregator, and it's a worldwide pattern recognizer. So if it's out there, ChatGPT, all the other amazing AI tools will grab it, mix it up in this giant blender, and spit it right back out to you in the way that you ask for. Sometimes. I always tell people that, it's very tempting to use AI for everything because it's instant, perfect, and free. And perfect is debatable because if you don't count math and you don't count facts, then yes, it's perfect. If you do count math and you do count facts, because those are two areas where it's still not 100%, it's about 85%. You open yourself up to all kinds of problems if you're trusting AI to be 100%. But the purpose of this rant that I'm on now is you're using AI, your competitors are using AI. All it has is computational intelligence, aggregation, and pattern recognition. Guess what the output is? The output is practically designed to look like, sound like, and feel like everybody else because that's where it came from. Mm-hmm. So, I don't think that, I think the content that we create, so let's go back to visibility for a second. When I say visibility, I don't mean go to ChatGPT and start cranking out same-o, lame-o articles like all of your competitors and like everyone on LinkedIn and like every email newsletter and every Substack post and everything is now just covered with AI fingerprints. And you mentioned about, I think I can pick up on it. I know you can pick up on it, and I know I can pick up on it. And so this is really, really important where the humans are going to win this race with visibility is in three other areas. It's not in how-to content because how-to content is done. How-to content is dead. Stick a fork in it. We are no longer doing how-to content. We have to elevate our visibility campaign, our visibility assets, not in how-to, but in how to think. So how to think is a much higher level strategic, advisory, insight-based kind of content. So why are humans especially good at that?
You're listening to another exclusive interview from the Persuasion Play Podcast with Jeffrey Thomas.
Because they are based on your personal experience, expertise, what you've done, what you've learned, what you've seen. It is uniquely yours. It has your humanity, your experience, your lived experience. So knowing what you've done, what you've seen, what you've learned, coming through the filter of all of those experiences, war stories, battle scars, lessons learned, the mistakes and the missteps that you've made, the assumptions that you're now smarter than ever making those assumptions again. Those kinds of things need to be shared because no matter how smart AI is, and I'm saying this in present day, who knows what it's going to be a year from now, 2 years from now. But right now, Jeffrey Thomas is going to be uniquely Jeffrey Thomas. And the more Jeffrey Thomas he brings, as far as those things I just mentioned, the lessons learned, what I've done, what I've seen, what I've learned, mistakes, missteps, successes, slants, biases, opinions, recommendations, all of those things are uniquely Jeffrey. When I start to rant and I start to, be on podcasts and, all of this amazing stuff, this rant you will never get from ChatGPT because this rant comes from the brain and the soul of a human being with lived experience, genuine expertise, and, all the war stories, all the battle scars that let me earn this knowledge and earn this attention. The more David Newman I am in the marketplace, the more pneumatic I am, the more Thomasic you are, Jeffrey Thomas, the more we're going to win. The more we're going to win because AI ain't no way, ain't no how. It cannot fake that. It cannot fake that. So that's my AI rant.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, it's the personality that has to shine through, and the more that AI smooths those rough edges and a person tries to hide behind it, perhaps. Their personality just kind of gets lost, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the idea with the book then is to show your personality, and it's got 22 strategies to do that. But you're not trying necessarily to make the reader or have the reader make themselves like a celebrity, like a Hollywood celebrity, right? It's more of
correct.
A market
Exactly right. So I'm so glad that you picked up on this because sometimes the pushback I get, this concept of business celebrity, people like, huh? It's again a Scooby-Doo moment. We've had business leaders and we've had celebrities, and this concept of business celebrity, by the way, is not new. And pardon me, I'm going to take us back 50 years. Yeah. I'm going to take us back to Lee Iacocca, who was the chairman of Chrysler. And Chrysler had all kinds of terrible, horrible, financial results back in the late 1970s. Lee Iacocca came in, turned the whole company around, huge success story. He decided to write a book. Before this, CEOs didn't write books. It was like, oh, what are you talking about? You're the CEO. Run the company. Make money for the shareholders. But he wrote a book. Guy was not very imaginative, so the name of the book is Iacocca. And it's his business professional memoir of how he turned around Chrysler, how he had this major, huge success story on his hands. This book, Jeffrey, you may remember, sold millions and millions and millions and millions of copies. This was around 1978, 79, something like that. And this was the convergence of the business world and CEOs and celebrities. Because before Lee Iacocca, yes, we had lots of CEOs, lots of business leaders, but they were quiet. They stayed in the boardroom. They stayed in the office. They were not going out and, being on social media and writing books and giving speeches and being on podcasts. And then we had celebrities. We had movie stars. We had rock stars. We had musicians, artists, actors. Business celebrity came together with Lee Iacocca. Since then, this has become very, very commonplace. So the CEOs of all the big major Fortune 500 companies, they always write books. They're always on the speaking circuit. Even the CEOs of small mid-sized firms, right? The Inc. 5000 companies like 37 Signals, companies like Stonyfield Farm Yogurt. Gary Hirschberg wrote a fantastic book. And so this whole concept of elevating your personal brand in order to grow the company brand and in order to grow revenue. And I also want to go back to the word eminence because you made mention of, it's a little bit of a weird word, and I totally agree with you. It is a little bit of a weird word. And it does mean fame, but I want to read you the definition
Yeah.
that is in the book and that I talk about a lot because I love, as soon as you hear the dictionary definition of eminence, I think a lot of these concepts will start to kick in.
Okay.
So, eminence is fame or recognized superiority. Notice it's not just superiority, it's fame or recognized superiority, especially within a particular sphere or profession. So, we're not being the Hollywood celebrities to your question. We're not trying to be famous to everybody. We are trying to be quote unquote famous within a particular sphere or profession, because that's all that matters. If you're a business leader, if you're a CEO, if you've got something to say, something to sell, products, services, whatever it might be, we need to reach a very specific, highly targeted group of people. To those people, we need to be famous. So I want to use another little advertising slogan that I sometimes pull out. There's the old Visa campaign, the old Visa TV commercials, where Visa was very proud of the fact that they were everywhere you want to be. And so you don't need to be everywhere. To gain market eminence, you absolutely don't need to be everywhere. You shouldn't be everywhere. But you do want to be everywhere you want to be, meaning everywhere that your clients and prospects and everywhere your audience is exactly where you want to be. If they're not there, you don't need to bother with it. And I'm talking about, this is a universal concept. This deals with social media platforms. This deals with conferences. This deals with target markets. This deals with all kinds of things. If you're, you got to fish where the fish are, right? Again, marketing 101, copywriting 101. You got to fish where the fish are. If the fish ain't there, don't worry about it. That's not for you, right? You don't need to be on TikTok wiggling your butt to sell, geriatric home health equipment. They're not there, folks. They're not there. Are they on Facebook? Probably. Are they on, Instagram? Some of them. But so this decision is so important. And I think what I find with my audiences and the clients that hire me to do this work is a lot of times the companies, these mid-market companies or professional services firms, they really don't know who their target market is. So any sort of direct response copywriter would immediately have a heart attack and a stroke and a nervous breakdown, because you say, well, who are we trying to reach? And they go, everybody, everybody. And of course, your head explodes, my head explodes, and go, well, this is not going to work, my friends. We have to get very specific. And the mantra that I'll just end this rant on, it is very hard, very, very hard to hit a target that you cannot see. If you have the blinders on, if you've got the blindfold going and you're shooting arrows left and right, kids and puppies will get hurt. You do not want to be in that business. So you absolutely need to know who the target is, or none of this will work.
That's so very true. So my question then is, if marketing your own self or the CEO is so important to growing your own brand and growing your business, how should ghostwriters approach that? Because they're trying to mimic that CEO's voice and that
Sure.
CEO's personality and that.
So I think there are ghostwriters. Most of us, we have two different identities, and with ghostwriters especially, they have two different identities. They have an identity in the ghostwriter marketplace, right, where you do want to hire the drop dead expert in your kind of book, your kind of industry. So let's say that you specialize, you're a ghostwriter and you live in Bentonville, Arkansas, and you only write books for retiring senior Walmart executives. By the way, there is a ghostwriter who lives in Bentonville, Arkansas, and all she does is, as she reads in the local paper, hey, VP of so-and-so at Walmart is retiring after 40 years of service, immediately grabs them, email, phone call, let's have lunch, congrats on your retirement. Have you ever thought about writing a book? There's another person who's in Annapolis, Maryland, and you can start to see this pattern now, retiring admirals, retiring naval admirals. they all want to write a book. They've all seen and done and learned a whole lot of things. And that particular ghostwriter who lives in Annapolis, right? Hey, you're a Naval Academy grad. You're coming back for your big celebration, 40-year reunion, whatever. Let's grab lunch. I see that you just retired last year. Have you ever thought about writing a book? Now, am I going to go to a generic ghostwriter? If let's say I'm Admiral Joey Schmedlap, and I'm going back to Annapolis and I'm getting all my, alumni awards and, I'm getting all the scrambled eggs on my hat and all the fruit salad on my chest. And I have a choice of sitting down with this ghostwriter who has done a great job for 3 or 4 of my personal friends and 20 other admirals. And this is her drop dead specialty. Or do I go to a guy that's done consultants and executives and CEOs and life coaches and midwives and so you want to be the obvious as a ghostwriter, you want to be the obvious choice for your target market. Once you're hired, here's the second identity. The first identity is you as a ghostwriter in the ghostwriter marketplace. That's where you need the market eminence. Once you're hired, let's go back into the first half of that word, ghost. Right? You are now that person's voice. You are now that person's brain. You are now that person's organizer and collator and collector and sequencer of ideas and practices and principles and stories and anecdotes and lessons and all that great stuff. So at that point, yes, you are putting on the cloak of invisibility, and you are putting out a fantastic, amazing product that admiral or that retiring Walmart executive or whoever it is that your target market is, they will love that book. That book will sound like them. That book will feel like them. That book will contain their heart, their soul, and their intellect. And so don't worry about the market eminence after you're hired. Market eminence only accounts in the ghostwriting world before you're hired, so that you get hired by better clients at higher fees.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, to me, I understand more now. I appreciate that the collection and sequencing and clarification of the ideas is so important.
Yeah.
And I think for like a social media ghostwriter, to get that requires really that you spend a lot of time with the person that you're writing on their behalf,
Yeah. Well, and one of your earlier guests, Jeffrey, talked about, I think it was Kevin Halbert, talked about the number one biggest mistake is lack of research.
Yeah.
Right? You don't do your homework and you figure, you can just wing it because you're good with words. That ain't how it works, right? The research is 80% of the game. 80%. 20% is writing skills, emotional triggers, knowing persuasion architecture and structures, having a good ear and a good eye for stories, examples, metaphors, analogies, colorful, engaging writing, things like that. 80% is in the research.
Yeah, so true. And that's, in some regards, AI excels at that,
Oh, AI as a research assistant? Absolutely.
It still
Absolutely.
makes mistakes.
Love it. Because again, the computational intelligence, the aggregation, the pattern recognition, that's priceless. It'll save you hours, dozens of hours on every project.
So AI, though, can't necessarily maybe inspire ideas, but it can't get us to promote a lot of the things that we know and learn. But your book has 22 mind-sparking questions, right?
Yes.
To get you going.
Yeah. 22. There's 22 categories of things. And I'm glad you're asking about this, because sometimes folks say, well, do I need to do all 22 before I can start working on this? And the answer is no. If you were to start, I would start with a couple of the early chapters in part 2 of the book. And so, for example, one of the foundational ones, one of the easy ones, one of the fun ones, is to figure out your contrarian slant. And your contrarian slant, I'm going to give you 3 questions right now so folks watching and listening can do this at home.
Nice. Yeah.
These are sort of reflection questions. You can grab a notebook, grab a journal, and just start writing short phrases, keywords, bullets if you like. Question number one to get you thinking about how to develop your contrarian slant. Number one, what conventional wisdom in your field do you secretly think is completely wrong, but you've never publicly challenged it? So that's number one. Conventional wisdom that you secretly think is completely wrong, holding people back, not serving clients or customers in the best possible way, but you've never publicly stated anything about it or, tried to, take it down, challenge it, knock it around. Question number two, what harsh truth about your industry are clients desperate for someone to finally acknowledge openly? I call this one the elephant in the room, right? The unmentionables, the things that other people, they know, but they're afraid to talk about it. So, for example, if you were to rant against let's say you're a law firm, and you're the one law firm that does not believe in hourly billing. So you develop a campaign around we don't believe in hourly billing, right? We are focused 100% on results, fixed fees, no surprises. And then you say, well, why are we against hourly billing? Because we're much more concerned about getting you to your destination than we are about running the taxi meter. And it's like, booyah! Every other law firm is wetting their pants like, oh my God, they just called us out for having, $800 an hour billing. And, Xerox copies cost $6 each. And we are, ripping off our clients 5 different ways to Sunday. And these guys do fixed fees, no surprises, just results, and they're going to eat our lunch. It's like, okay, well, let's do that. Let's have a law firm that is brave enough to say those things and brave enough to do those things. Third question, the kind of third doorway into the same pool of ideas. What strong point of view do you already hold? So you're not putting this on, you're not faking this, you're not trying to be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian, but it's a strong point of view that you already hold, that you already believe, that makes industry insiders uncomfortable but resonates deeply with your ideal clients and customers. So when they hear you talk about it, when they read the newsletter that rants about it, when they go to your homepage, they go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that out loud. Did you use your outdoor voice to say that? Holy smokes. Oh my gosh. I've thought that for years, but nobody listens to me. I've always believed what you believe. And also, here's the third piece of this, Jeffrey, that yes, you want them to get excited. Yes, you want to get some response, some emails, some comments. In the positive vein, you also want to get some hate mail. In fact, if you're not getting some hate mail, you're not doing this right. Because if you don't risk turning some people off, you will never turn anybody on. That's a whole separate thing about kind of going against the grain and shifting beliefs and having a divisive and polarizing point of view, which we can talk about in a moment. But this is an area where people, they start to get scared. And they're like, oh no, what if someone doesn't like us? And whenever someone asks, well, what if someone doesn't like us? I say, well, if someone doesn't like you, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it right. Because if you don't risk turning some people off, you will never truly turn anyone on.
Yeah. Leo Burnett has a quote that he says, he's against watered down advertising. He said, if whiskey was meant to be watered down, it would have come from the factory that way.
Yeah.
Like that.
Amen.
Yeah. So those 3 questions, really help to define your positioning and what you're for and what you're against. And it, like you said, it helps draw, I think a common term is your tribe, right?
Yes.
What are some common ways that CEOs and founders, or even marketers, get this wrong? Is it just always trying to be people pleasing and bland? Is that what?
So that is definitely one of the areas. And I'll tell you the source of that. This is a source that needs to be unplugged. This is a source that needs to be disconnected. Perhaps right now, as you're listening to this, as you're watching this, you decide to disconnect this from your brain. It's 2 very human impulses. Number one is the impulse to be liked the desire to be liked. And number two is the desire to sound smart. I do not want you to give one rat's butt. Can I say rat's ass?
Absolutely.
I'm going to say rat's ass because it sounds a lot better than rat's butt.
Yes, it does.
I don't want you to give a rat's ass about sounding smart. I don't want you to give a rat's ass about being liked. And here's why. We'll tackle these one at a time. Sounding smart. Sounding smart means you're going to use jargon. You're going to use industry language. You're going to do a competitive scan on all the other companies that do what you do. And you're like, oh, this company's much bigger. This company's much more successful. This company's stock price is really great right now. Let's sound like them, right? And you start to emulate intentionally. You start to emulate, right? Because they sound smart. You want to sound smart. So smart, like, same, lame. That's the equation, my friends. You do not want to do that. When you have this desire to sound smart, you start to emulate what you think smart sounds like. And you end up looking like everybody else. It is watered down whiskey, perfect way to describe it. Second thing is wanting to be liked. And when I say wanting to be liked, what I mean is wanting to be universally liked. Oh, we don't want to upset anybody. We don't want to, we don't want to get any hate mail. We want to cast as wide a net as possible. We want to be as vanilla and as safe as we can because we want to be liked by everyone on the planet, right? This is called hedging your bets. And if you look at every great brand, not just the big brands, the small brands, the medium brands, the micro brands, there are people who love them and they love them a lot. And there's people who hate them, would never buy from them, are turned off by what they do, what they say, how they act, how they look, how they talk. And these are the truly successful companies. So there are those two very human and very understandable conditions, wanting to be liked, wanting to sound smart. We have to unplug those. Now, let me go back to turning some people off because I do this in workshops and seminars all the time. This is where CEOs and founders start to go, God, Joe, gee, Jeffrey, I don't know. Maybe we take it slow. Maybe we don't go, quite there. And I said, okay, listen. What if we installed a magic electromagnetic fence around your company? And this magic electromagnetic fence is custom designed to strongly attract your perfect fit, not just your perfect fit prospects and customers, but perfect fit talent, partners, media, speaking opportunities, investors, maybe even acquirers if you want someone to buy your company. They powerfully attract perfect fits. And then because it's an electromagnetic fence, it has the other polarity. It equally strongly repels the bad fits. And I look around the room and there's still, I say, okay, let's make this very, very real for you. And usually there's a whiteboard or a flip chart in the seminar room where I'm doing this. And I say, let's list out. When I say bad fit, I want you to list out all the behaviors, traits, characteristics, and beliefs of folks that you feel are a bad fit. They're a bad fit to buy from you. They're a bad fit to work here. They're a bad fit to invest in your company. Let's go. And they say, okay, well, let's start with bad fit prospect or bad fit customer. They nickel and dime us. They're price sensitive. They're tire shoppers. They come in and they're always looking for a deal. They will leave at the drop of a hat. Churn is incredibly high. Retention is almost impossible because they don't really get what we do. They don't value what we do. They dodge meetings. They're rude to our team. I'm writing all this down on the whiteboard here, Jeffrey. And say, okay, good list. Let's talk about all the, like, you've had some bad hires here, some people that didn't work out that you really didn't like. What's the characteristic of a bad team member? Oh my gosh, they come in late, they leave early, they do the minimum, they check the box, they're not driven. You constantly have to push and prod them. They don't respect deadlines. Got it. Right. We have a list of 8, 10, 12 things here. And I said, let's go back to what I said a moment ago. electromagnet around the company, powerfully attracts the great fits, powerfully repels all of these people that have all of this behavior right here. How do you feel about that? And you can see around the room, their shoulders soften. They kind of look at the whiteboard or the flip chart with this soft glow, and they say to me, wow, that would be great. And I say, I know, wouldn't it be great? Welcome to Market Eminence. And now they feel much better about you're never going to turn anybody on if you don't risk turning some people off. It's all of these people that we're turning off. It's okay. They would never buy from you. If they did buy from you, they'd be nightmare clients from hell. You wouldn't want them to work here. You wouldn't want to take their money. You wouldn't want to be associated with them in any way. They are kryptonite. So we're going to repel the kryptonite, and we're just going to attract the people who are the super fans and the super talent and the super partners that, to use a Superman analogy here, right? We're going to attract all of the super fans, and we are going to repel the people that are bringing in the kryptonite.
That sounds wonderful. It also sounds scary. I mean, because how do you know that? I mean, I'm speaking theoretically here. How do you know that what you're saying is actually going to work out in your favor?
Well, you design it. So you decide, right? You decide exactly who is going to be pulled in electromagnetically, and you design your messaging, your positioning, your differentiation, your marketing copy, your want ads, your job applications, your proposals, your voicemails. All of this needs to be in alignment. So, there's the foundational work of making the decisions, and then there's all the places this shows up. So let's say that you're this wild, contrarian, hippie brand. And then I say, okay, well, show me your invoice. Invoice looks like every other invoice those clients are ever going to get. I was like, this does not look like a wild, crazy, hippie, contrarian invoice. This looks like a pretty plain vanilla invoice that I might get from my insurance agent. And they go, oh, so that counts? Yes, it counts. Can I hear your outgoing voicemail greeting? Sounds like every other insurance company's outgoing voicemail greeting. But we said, hippie, funky, fun, approachable, right? So I want you to think about, in this sense, in a marketing sense, I want you to think about Geico, because insurance is the most boring business there could possibly be. I want you to think about Geico, and I want you to think about State Farm. Right. And State Farm has Jake and all the nonsense because they figured they had to compete with that. But State Farm is a very buttoned up company, like no risk, very serious, incredibly, State Farm. I don't know if you know this or have done any work with them or people that do work with them. State Farm's brand guidelines are like fascist rules. Like they are maniacal about their brand guidelines. And they're just very buttoned down, super conservative, incredibly risk averse. So you have on one hand, you got State Farm. On the other hand, you got Geico with the gecko and the silly, all the crazy stuff, the caveman, they've all, the campaign of the week, the campaign of the month, and always very creative, always very fun, always with a little bit of a smile and a twinkle in their eye. And so who's got better marketing? Plain vanilla enforced brand guidelines that makes them look like Fort Knox, or approachable, fun, sense of humor, sense of humanity, make people smile, make people laugh. And again, we're talking about insurance. So the State Farm folks, obviously very successful company, they're going to attract people that they attract, and they're going to repel the people that they repel. Geico, they're going to attract the people that they attract, and they're going to repel the people that they repel. Do we actually think that Geico is sitting around in their boardroom going, guys, we need to be more serious? The whole thing with the gecko and the caveman and the funky, crazy, silly ads and the Super Bowl commercials, that's not a serious enough image for us. I think we have to go in a different direction. No, it is all done with incredible strategy, incredibly intentionality, incredibly designed intentionality, and they know who they're after, right? They know their demographic, they know their psychographic, they know their value graphic, And they are doing these things because it's a multi-billion-dollar company. They are doing these things with incredible precision. So here we are. Let's say we're running a much smaller company, right? Are there lessons you could learn about who you want to powerfully attract with the electromagnets and who you powerfully want to repel? And again, if you haven't made that foundational decision of who are the ideal fits and who are the terrible fits, you're just going to keep chasing your tail and going around in circles. And when you do that, you end up looking like, sounding like everybody else. Then you sink into commodity and obscurity, and that's the danger here, really. If your company, if you're watching this and your company is perfectly fine operating in the shadows and in total obscurity, in total commodity, total irrelevance, and total basically anonymity, where you're starting from square zero with every single conversation, every single prospect, every single new hire, everybody, then you won't do this. And that's totally cool. I would say the only about the top 5 or 10% of any industry's companies are these market mavericks, these real rock stars that are brave enough and bold enough and smart enough to do this. So for the folks listening and watching, my encouragement to you is the bar is low, because 90 to 95% of your competitors are going to keep playing it safe. They're going to stay in the obscurity zone. They're going to stay in the vanilla zone. And so if you just do a little bit of this, again, that's why I'm saying you don't need to do all 22 strategies. Start with 1 or 2 that you feel most comfortable and most clear about. You do a first couple of those things, send that first email with your contrarian slant, put something on Facebook, put something on LinkedIn. Your next sales conversation, bring this into your next sales conversation. The next email blast that you send out to your subscribers, put it in there and watch the response. Watch what comes back. You will get some, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I can't believe you said that. That's fantastic. I've always felt that way. You will get some hate mail, and you will start to separate the wheat from the chaff, and you will start to separate the people who are powerfully attracted to who you are and what you do, and the ones that are not for you and not even worth pursuing.
Yeah, I mean, so much of that is about standing out, and as you mentioned, the Geico ads are fun, but they're also so not like the State Farm, right?
That's right.
That
Totally
stand out
opposite.
so much.
Yeah.
I was running some ads recently, and one of them was outpulling a more conventional ad by 6 times, and the client asked me to turn it off because it didn't match what they thought it should match. And it's like,
Yeah. Too edgy. Too edgy meaning too effective.
yeah, I guess. Well, how long have you been in marketing?
I started this business back in 2002 knowing absolutely nothing
Right on.
about marketing, sales, positioning, differentiation. So I'm one of these entrepreneurial success stories where I had to solve my own problem first and then go and teach others. And that's exactly what I did. I mean, I couldn't close a door. I could not sell my way out of a paper bag. So the first 3 years of my business was a total disaster. But I'll tell you, the big turning point for me, Jeffrey, because I was a student. I was a whole master student of the game. I read all the books. I took the courses. I hired a sales coach. This early sales mentor says to me, David, you're a really good student. You're picking this up really, really fast. You seem to be really dedicated to becoming a good salesperson. And I at first took that as praise, but then he paused and he said, I would focus less on being a good salesperson. Focus on being a better person, and more sales will happen. And that was like, and that set me off on a whole different path and a whole different direction, right? So we got to care more. We got to listen more. We got to ask better questions. We have to be more curious. We have to be more committed to a client or a customer outcome. You have to be more of an advocate and a champion for what they really want and what they really want to achieve. That kind of person, that kind of salesperson, if you will, people can smell the difference versus someone who's very self-centered, commission breath, always chasing the next check, doesn't really care what's best for that customer. You can obviously sometimes see that on the surface very easily. Sometimes you can't see it on the surface very easily, but you feel something is wrong. You feel that they're not in alignment with you. They are not your advocate. They are not your champion. They are not your friend. When you turn down business and you say, I've thought about your situation. We've had a couple of conversations, and I really don't think that we're the best fit to get you where you want to go. Do you think your trust goes up or goes down? Way up, right? Way up. And now that person may come back to you with something else or a different project. How do you think they're going to talk about you? How likely are they to refer you? How likely are they to be a champion and an advocate that is singing your praises in the marketplace because you refused to take the quick buck when it wasn't the right project, it wasn't the right fee, it wasn't the right client, it wasn't the right environment to do your best work? And you simply say, I really don't think we're a fit. Let me tee you up with a couple of other people that I know that might be able to serve you much, much better than we can. You are now the rock star in that prospect's eyes. And it's that kind of discernment where we're no longer in the chasing, persuading, and convincing business, but we're literally, Jeffrey, we're filtering and sorting. Who are the good fits? Who are the bad fits? We're filtering and sorting. We are choosing our clients. They're not choosing us so much now. We are choosing them. So think of this as another metaphor that I like to use with my speaking audiences is tugboat versus lighthouse, right? The tugboat is in the harbor, chugging away, working really hard, pulling these giant barges and follow me, follow me, follow me. And the lighthouse is tall, quiet, sits on the shore, illuminates with this incredibly strong beam of light, illuminates the entire harbor, and it guides the ships through the dangerous rocks, the sharp rocks that are sticking above the waterline, shows them where they are, shows them where the safe passage is. And this lighthouse is not needy. This lighthouse is not chasing. This lighthouse is not persuading or convincing. It is staying put. It is illuminating, right? And by illuminating the truth and separating the wheat from the chaff and the beliefs from the half-truths and the myths and the lies in your industry, it's going to attract exactly the right ships as opposed to the tugboat who is huffing and puffing and chasing and persuading and convincing. Tugboat's life is exhausting. The lighthouse is just sitting there with ease and comfort and confidence and certainty. And people want to connect with brands and companies and executives who are lighthouses of their industry.
For more information about persuasion, motivation, and mindset, and how you can influence your brain and the brains around you, visit my website at https://goldmine.marketing. All right, so you've written other books that we talked about in the introduction, and I can see them also in your background, such as Do It Marketing, Do It Selling. What are those books about?
So those are how-to books. Those are absolutely how-to books. I think they're great, honestly.
Yeah.
I think they're amazing.
All right.
I think you will too. But where the Market Eminence book came from is I looked at, so the Do It Marketing book is a small business marketing handbook. Very, very successful, #1 bestseller in a whole bunch of categories, translated into 6 languages. And when I say #1 bestseller, by the way, I mean, it stayed in the top 20 and #1, it hit multiple times. But the thing I'm most proud of with that book is that it stayed in the top 20 in its category for 39 months straight. 39 months, 3 years and 3 months. So it wasn't one of these flash in the pan, #1 bestseller at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of deals. But that book is a small business marketing book. And about 30% of that book is about sales and selling. And there are threads of what I talk about in Market Eminence in that first book. The second book is about speaking as a one-to-many sales platform, speaking as a one-to-many revenue generator, speaking both online and offline, and how to use your voice both online and offline, in other words, in person and virtual, with podcasts and videos and webinars and speaking at local chapters of your target markets, industry association. All of those to me are speaking strategies. So we put speaking in a much larger box than just speaking on a stage in front of an audience. And so there are again, differentiation, positioning, articulation, and distinction strategies in that book, but that just related to speaking. So I pulled some of those out. And then the Do It Selling book came out in 2023 because I realized a lot of people came to me, they thought they had a marketing problem and they really had an underlying sales problem. So we also do a lot of sales strategy, sales training, etc. Again, a seller is going to have a really hard time if selling for a same-o, lame-o, undifferentiated company. So I said, okay, what's the ultimate solution that people really want and need at this point? So I took some of the best ideas from all three of these books, condensed it so it is super short, it is super tight, as you know, and thank you for reading the book. It is super short, super tight, like a dense flourless chocolate cake. What are all of the strategies that I've been teaching, preaching, and ranting about around differentiation, articulation, distinction, positioning, and elevating yourself above the crowd? It's like a greatest hits, and it's in a workbook format, so you can actually sit down with it over a weekend or over a half day meeting with your team if you have a team, and start answering these questions. And more importantly, start making these decisions so that you de-commoditize yourself and start being more of who you are and stand for more of what you want to stand for, and also stand against what you want to stand against, and start to turn on this magic electromagnetic fence that I was talking about.
Nice. So if there was one big idea that you'd want people to walk away with, is it that magic fence? What's the big idea?
So the big idea, it's going to be an encouragement. The encouragement is, so if some of this sounds scary, and we've talked about this, and Jeffrey, you're absolutely right, that when I present this to a CEO or a founder, there is a little bit of hesitation, trepidation, fear. My best encouragement, if you want to just dip your toe into this and try it, action eliminates fear. Take a baby step. See what happens with that next blog post that I talked about, the next email, the next sales conversation, the next webinar, the next live stream that you're on. Take that little bit of a seed of the contrarian slant that we helped you develop here during this show and put it out there and see what happens, and see both the positive response. If you get a little bit of hate mail, remember that's a good thing. And I would just say, don't just sit there and theorize about it. Don't just say, well, that sounds nice. I heard Jeffrey's podcast, good ideas, but I'm not going to do anything with it. Please, my friends, action eliminates fear. Take those baby steps, and I think you will be amazed by the results.
Excellent. I really like that. David, you've been an excellent guest. I appreciate your time today. Everybody, please go check out marketeminence.com, and you can reach David at doitmarketing.com. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, but I do want to sort of give a bribe, an ethical bribe to folks.
Please.
So obviously, I would love them to buy the book. That would be fantastic. But even if you don't buy the book, go to marketeminence.com, download all of the book's companion tools, resources, training videos, templates, tools, scripts. If you're inspired after that to go grab a copy of the book, good. If you're not, it will still be of good service to you, all of those free bonus tools and trainings at marketeminence.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I appreciate your time. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Please check out goldmine.marketing for more information about persuasion, motivation, and influence. Have a good day. Hey, if you're a business owner or a copywriter and you're looking to earn more money, check out the resources at goldmine.marketing. It's all about direct response copywriting and direct response marketing, motivation and influence, and can help you raise your profits starting now. Check it out, goldmine.marketing. There's all kinds of interviews, book reviews, and lessons distilled from books there, all of which can help increase your profits. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video and check out the playlist for additional interviews from goldmine.marketing. Thanks again. My name is Jeffrey. See you next time.